Joining me now is one of India's most respected jurists, former Solicitor General of India, Harish Salve. Sir, thanks very much for speaking to us, Mr. Salve.
Welcome.
There's been sharp exchange over the constitutional amendment bill, which proposes that a chief minister, prime minister, or any minister will lose office if they're in custody for 30 days or more in a criminal case that could be punishable with 5 years of imprisonment or more. While the bill aims to enforce moral and constitutional standards on those facing cases, the argument against it is that it could lead to targeting of opposition leaders and effecting political changes in a vitiated political atmosphere. Where do you stand on this, sir?
First of all, I think it's a crying shame that we need such a bill. The fact that somebody is asserting that they should have the right to discharge a solemn duty, a ministerial duty, from a prison cell, despite the highest court in the land having said that they deserve to be in a prison cell. In pre-trial custody, undoubtedly, but in pre-trial custody. The fact that such an assertion is being made makes me wonder, have we really lost touch with our democracy? 1991, when the Supreme Court started the, and I'm bold to say, the ill-conceived investigations into the Jain Hawala diaries, nobody was arrested, but everybody who was charged resigned, including, I think, Mr. Advani, who was then leader of the opposition, who said, I will not come back and join public life till I have cleared my name. To the year 2000, when Mr. Lalu Prasad Yadav made his wife the chief minister and became what in common parlance was called the de facto chief minister. And I have seen photographs of all the Lal Batti cars outside Beor jail and meeting being held inside the Beor jail with all the ministers present. So, but that at least had a fig leaf. And now we've seen that fig leaf fall away. So this is where we are. And when we hit such a rock bottom, then we have to do something. And all sorts of things are being said about this bill. You know, we have now this new breed of discussion in which one-liners are everything. So like a scattergun approach, you throw in 3 or 4 established principles of law and say all of them are violated, and therefore it violates the most famous phrase of the politicians today, basic structure of the Constitution. It's a nonsense to suggest any such thing as that.
So when you say that, sir, what would be your argument to those who turn around and say that we are in an atmosphere where constitutional offices have been used against political, in political disputes against the opposition leaders, and they're saying that this could open the door for greater misuse of constitutional office, whether it's the governor's office.
So let's deconstruct that. Do we accept then in principle that where it's a genuine arrest, this should apply? So this should only not apply where there is a false arrest. Because the argument is there could be a false arrest. See, there is no argument on principle that a person who's arrested should be allowed to continue in office. The allegation is of abuse. Now, this allegation of abuse, therefore, admits the basic premise that, well, in principle, you're right. If somebody is arrested, he should not be in office. But if it is a false arrest, taking him away from office is wrong. Who decides whether it's a false arrest or not? You can't be self-certifying this. So our Constitution leaves it to the judiciary. And our Supreme Court has entertained bail petitions by all these eminent people in public life who have been charged by the government. And the Supreme Court has said, on the facts of the case, sorry, you are not entitled to come out. So, if it is a false case, either you say it's a vote of no confidence against our judiciary. So, for the common man, the judiciary is to be trusted. For the businessman, the judiciary is to be trusted. For everybody else, the judiciary is to be trusted. When it comes to people holding high office, the judiciary not to be trusted. I mean, is that the argument? So, you are by definition a person whom the courts and most likely the highest court in the country has said, sorry, on the allegations against you and on the material against you, you are rightly in custody. You're not disqualified from anything. You're only told you will not run your Sachivale from a prison cell. That destroys democracy. I'm sorry. I have a very different understanding of democracy.
You're making a very, very important point there. And I think, the argument in favor of the bill has been spearheaded on the fact that Arvind Kejriwal stayed in office despite being behind bars. Uh, when we deconstruct this argument in terms of going forward, how do we see this entire exchange that's playing out between the opposition and the government at the moment? Do you believe that this is a reflection of lack of faith in the judicial process, or do you believe that this is more a reflection of the political realities at the moment?
I think it's a reflection of a fundamental change in value systems. If you think a ministerial office is a sacred duty, a very high office which you are discharging a sacred duty by discharging, then to accept the principle that and this duty cannot be discharged effectively from a prison cell is perfectly sensible. But if you think of office as something which you have worked very hard, spent a lot of money to earn, and you are speaking with a sense of entitlement, it's like a quasi property, an office. Then you say, merely on my arrest am I to lose my property. I'm sorry, I think that's the real mindset. And let us not be deceived by all the smoke around, the will of the voter and the public will. I do not think the Indian voter has ever voted for a system in which a person who has committed a serious offense would be allowed to be a minister. No system ever countenances this. No if you do research, I doubt if you will find a single instance of a prime minister or somebody or a head of government or a senior person holding office has been running his office from a jail cell. There's something which has gone seriously wrong. We should never have needed this law. Current events tell you maybe you need this law because this mindset has changed.
Sir, you're a very, very respected voice. And I know a very senior lawyer who once told me that when Mr. Salve speaks, everybody else listens. You have friends across the aisle. There are legal jurists on either side of the aisle. What would you like to tell those who are fiercely opposing this bill as one that could take away their rights? And, some even described it as a punishment without a trial as far as a political office is concerned. What would your message be?
See, that is why I have a rule which I follow. If I'm appearing in a case, I never make public comment. If I had accepted a brief to challenge this law, I would have said all sorts of things against this law in a court of law. I would have thought of all the nice points which I can say. But if I'm speaking on your channel, it only means I have no engagement with this law. I'm viewing it as a citizen of India and as a person who's a student of law. If you have political or legal compulsions, those who are in public life and also lawyers, I can understand their arguments. And I've put on the various interviews which I've had today on this issue, I've put my views across. You may agree, you may disagree. I'm not an intellectual czar who feels my view is the only view. But these are my points. My points are presumption of innocence has nothing to do with this. Presumption of innocence is the legal principle in which the prosecution has to bring home your guilt unless when you are innocent until the prosecution brings home your guilt. But that doesn't mean there can't be pre-trial arrest. The arrest, whether it is post-conviction or pre-conviction, an arrest takes away your most precious right, the freedom. Your liberties are taken away. And the liberties of Indian citizens are taken away, not people in high public office. Everybody, as an Indian citizen, has the same right to liberty, whether you live in a mud hut somewhere or whether you live in a palace. You have the same right to liberty, and it is as precious. This is not a debate about personal liberties. This is not a debate about why the courts have drifted away from the old adage, bail not jail. Bail is the rule, jail is the exception. Let's have a debate on that. Let's have a debate on what's wrong with the PMLA law. Let's have a debate on what's wrong in the Supreme Court judgment in Vijay Madan Lal. But that's a separate debate because I think it is equally wrong to arrest a businessman and subject him to that law. So you are not a privileged class. This is the trouble. You now think of yourself as a privileged caste. So let's not conflate the debate about the ED and the PMLA with the debate on whether you should be allowed to run your office from jail. What about a man arrested for murder? What about a man arrested for a rape, for kidnapping, for extortion? If such a, or owning an illegal weapon in a sensitive area, 5 years plus, that's a serious offense. And if you are prima facie denied bail by a court, ED has no role to play. Should you be allowed to continue in office? So what we have is, we have ED who's grabbing front page news because they are arresting prominent people. And then layered on top is an argument that because ED has been arresting people in public life, therefore it's political opportunism. And do you think our Supreme Court of India is so naive that it will not see through a false case from a true one? So is this a vote of no confidence against the Supreme Court?
So you're technically saying, if I may put it in a nutshell, two wrongs don't make a right. Keep this differently. This is about a person with an elected office being allowed to run that office, which is a constitutional responsibility to the people, from a jail cell. And that's not acceptable. I just have one final question to you, sir. When we see this debate, and I ask you this, while you have distinguished between the clear points in this case vis-a-vis the other cases that are there, do you see this as a larger reflection of a larger vitiated atmosphere where the ruling forces and the opposition are not able to bridge their divide, and there is an absolute atmosphere of distrust?
Well, let's be very clear, and I don't, unfortunately, I see this, or rather, it is heartening to see that this is not only in India. We see this happening across the Atlantic also. You've seen the kind of things which are happening where legislators are sought to be arrested because they want to abstain from voting on a bill, etc. So this kind of trouble of breakdown of a dialogue is unfortunate in India. I don't like making political comments because I don't understand politics. My political comments are very biased and based on my own personal prejudices. So that's why I never get into arena of public debate. But yes, it is sad that we have reached such a high level of divide, and the vocabulary of this dialogue has become so acerbic. But that's a sign of the times, I suppose.
That's a sign of the times, you say, sir. May I just persist and ask you one final question? Does it make you feel sad that a politician would turn around and say, no, I don't want to vacate an office despite having a case or being behind bars, or want to fight for the right to stay there in office?
As an Indian, it makes me really wonder. My grandfather went to jail, fought the British, and then joined the Constituent Assembly and framed this constitution. We have worked all our life as students of constitutional law in the court. The fact that you even hear such an argument saddens me.
Right. Thanks very much there, Mr. Harish Salve, for putting those points across. You're making a very, very strong and nuanced point, both in terms of law and in terms of moral values as far as this bill is concerned. But of course, the opposition has its own concerns in terms of political victimization. But thanks very much, Mr. Harish Salve, for speaking to us here.